Hey, good evening, folks. It's 6 o'clock on a Wednesday. If it's 6 o'clock on a Wednesday, it's time for the Off the Record podcast with Ali Braswell, the Real Talk podcast, where we talk unfiltered, unscripted, and unapologetically about topics that I hope will advance your career, your lives, make it special. I want to take a special moment out as I begin this episode to say thank you to some people, to our subscribers. I want to thank the people who have taken the time to go like, comment, and subscribe, whether on YouTube or whatever platform, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, Podbeam, wherever you listen to your podcast content. Thank you for subscribing. Would ask that you continue to share the message, and want to thank you for the feedback that I've received. Particularly want to shout out a young man that over in Jacksonville who is my barber, Henry. Henry, thanks so much for listening. I'm glad you're picking up tidbits. Folks, he's 20 years old and already tuning in to understand how to navigate this crazy world and build key relationships, mutually beneficial relationships. I had a great conversation with a frat brother, Mo. Thank you for the feedback and thank you for letting me know you're listening. Love the feedback that you feel like you're having a conversation and I'm in the room with you. And keep talking back to the screen. I'll keep talking to you. To everybody out there, just want to say thank you for giving me an opportunity to share my story, a little bit of my history about what's going on and what some insights that I hope will help you advance from this incredible career that I've had. Most recently, I wrote an article that's out on LinkedIn. I'll talk about that at the end of the show, but check me out on LinkedIn. Follow us at Off the Record, the Real Talk podcast on Facebook, or my personal, Ali Braswell Jr. Glad to hear from you. Look forward to having more content. And let's get into this series, the relationship series. If you've been along with me for the first three episodes, we've talked through the SHIPS framework, which is the framework that I wrote when I put together the book Engage, Invest, Grow. Engage, Invest, Grow is all about the power of building mutually rewarding relationships and giving back and mastering a blueprint for building those relationships and mastering those relationships. You know, a lot of people ask me, where did the concept come from? It came from how I've been able to be successful in life. It's always been someone there, a mentor, a friend, or a colleague, or someone who had heard my good reputation that decided they wanted to step up and be a champion for me. You know, because see, what I really believe sponsorship is all about is intentionally champion for others, being able to open the door to someone to your Rolodex, or as others have called it, your Solodex. You know, I think George Fraser coined that phrase. Incredible person who has incredible relationships, someone I've read, and I also had the opportunity to hear speak on the power of building relationships and using them to advance career, business enterprise, community endeavors, corporate philanthropy. You know, as I think about today and talk about sponsorship, I'm so excited that, you know, we have an opportunity to continually open doors for other people. You know, I was talking with a young nephew, as that a lot of people say I'm everybody's favorite uncle. I was talking with my nephew Manny, and I was talking to him about an upcoming event he has with his incredible organization, and talking with him about how sponsorships, a lot of times, people think of them as the ask to a corporation for dollars. Yeah, truly, sponsorship can be monetary in nature, but the ones that I like to talk about is we'll spend some time on community engagement, but I'd like to talk about how your reputation, your character helps to open doors for you. Oftentimes, we're a part of the conversations up front, but many times we don't know about the conversation that may be going on behind the scenes. You know, Kathy Engelbert, the commissioner for the WNBA, former CEO for Deloitte, uh, just a powerful woman, explains it here that sponsorship is sometimes about the people behind the scenes who are sitting in the rooms determining your assignments and your next career steps, and you don't even know who they are. That's the premise of Off the Record. It's the conversations that happen when you're not in the room, when you are at the table, but you're not really at the table, your reputation. And if you have a champion in the room, you have somebody advocating on your behalf. I thought she summarized that really well when she talks about that, and I captured that as a quote within my book. Is that I thought what she was really speaking on is it's the behind the scenes conversations, folks, that determine your success. I was told long ago that your character shows up way before you do. Your reputation is normally in the conversation way before you're invited to participate. And so, what I always wanted to do was be a person of good character so that whatever message was getting there before I was, it was also congruent with when I showed up. I think that's so important in today is that who you are at home needs to be who you are in the streets. I got a frat brother says that his streets is his couch. I appreciate that. But it's what are people saying about you when you're not there? And let's hope that it's always favorable and that they're opening doors for you. When I think about sponsorship, let's do some definition. Sponsorship in corporate philanthropy is writing a check most often and purchasing a sponsorship at a particular event that helps community organizations, community based organizations, particularly nonprofits, be able to raise the funds to generate the support they need in order to be able to do the things that they do, right? Um, as I was reflecting back into my book on the chapter on sponsorship, I talked about results oriented community engagement. And a lot of times when you look at organizations, people look at what can I get from them? I would like you to flip that and say, what can I bring to them that would entice them to be engaged with me? And when I say bring it, was what's your messaging? What's your results? What's the tangible reason why an organization should embrace learning about you, scholarship, then potentially partnering to help you do what you do through sponsorship? Because as I state in my book, scholarship is that ship that makes every dock. In every corner of a relationship, we're learning about each other and we're continually learning. And particularly in corporate sponsorship, I've seen examples where people have really come together to do some incredible things, raise a lot of money. I had the privilege of being the chair of the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation some years ago, where we raised over $1 million. And I'm here to tell you, you want to talk about a fundraising machine? That's a machine. But I thought the way they went about it was so crucial. They built friendships and partnerships with key influencers through their executive director that then would have them bring their brand, their character, their reputation, and lend it for a moment to the organization to be able to raise incredible amounts of funds. It's an important thing, but I thought the thing I learned most from that engagement was the people in the room. You see, I've seen where tiered organizations or tier charts have been put together by organizations to determine how they will advance their philanthropy into the community based upon different levels, based upon different impacts. They gave different dollars, right? Well, I always wondered why people would pay the money for the rubber chicken dinner but never show up. We all know that the food is improving, so let me not, I don't want anybody coming at me. But it's not just a chicken dinner, folks. It's really an opportunity to teach your organization about the organizations you support. Think about it. How many times have you been to a fundraising dinner, luncheon, breakfast, and you see tables around with table tents, but no people? I would say that was because the relationship is more transactional than it is about intentional partnership and growing. I think where you had the opportunity there through results oriented community engagement, it's think outside the box. If you got $50,000 to invest in the community, what's the best way to use that? Now, oftentimes it's often easy to choose the routes that are less traveled and go back to the people we supported in the past. Trust me, they appreciate the sustained support. But what's the opportunity? What's the opportunity to reach out and build a new relationship with an emerging organization that the dollars that you help raise will almost triple in impact because they're meeting the need in the community. So how do you do that as from a community standpoint? Do a gap analysis. Look at what you're standing for and what you're advocating for as an organization, and identify organizations that meet those needs. Keep the people in it, though, folks. Keep the humanity in it, not just throw it over to a website with a link where they fill out a form and then you decide whether or not, or the algorithm actually decides whether or not they get funding. Sometimes the smaller organizations are the most impactful because they're at the grassroots and making a difference. And the dollars that you invest as a corporate entity are huge. But here's something that's even as impactful. If you're going to buy a table at $1,500 or whatever the price point is, $3,500, whatever it is, don't just purchase the table. Put decision makers and key leaders at the table with you. Because then when you go back to explain that giving the next year, they're familiar with it. They've heard the story. They've maybe even sat with some of the people who have been impacted by the philanthropy that the organization gives. It's a moving experience and it's a lasting experience, but it's a part of that scholarship, learning about each other and then having you be able to extend that learning into the organizations that you serve. Because it's really a double-edged sword. It serves the community, but you're also serving your leadership to learn more about the organizations that you as an organization may seem valuable. So let me recap there. I'm really talking about sponsorship, not just being a financial transaction, but one of learning about each other, truly coming together to partner to lend your brand, your reputation, and then opening the doors to allow others to step through the door into the avenue of what's being done. See, sponsorship for me is all about using your platform, your privilege, and your influence to open doors for others. I can remember one of my mentors who was key in my career from Disney forward was Bob Billingsley. I can remember traveling all over the country, and no matter where I went, the minute I dropped the Disney name and said, I work for Disney, the next thing I was asked, folks, was, do you know Bob Billingsley? Now, Robert Bob Billingsley was a phenomenal individual that worked at Walt Disney Parks and Resorts, uh, part of the Walt Disney Company, wrote the first ever diversity, equity, and inclusion statement for the organization many a year ago, retired after over 40 years of serving with Disney. But let me tell you what, his character, his reputation traveled all around the world, even when Bob wasn't there. His reputation, and if you said that you knew Bob, they were at least going to hear me out, right? Now, I knew they were going to get on the phone the minute I left the room and talk to Bob or send him a text or an email. Do you really know this guy? Now, here's where the sponsorship comes in. How credible was it, the conversation I had just had, Bob not in the room, when he co-signed and says, yeah, I know Ali Braswell, he's a good guy. You can trust his word. Folks, that's all we got is our word. The biggest thing that we carry, the biggest value and most valuable thing is our reputation, our word, the character that's conveyed or in the room when we're not there. I can tell you, Bob supported me while I was within the Disney organization. And when I left, I remember having a conversation with him where he said, Ali, you're not going to get to take the Disney American Express card with you when you go to the Urban League, but I'll be there to support you. Not only was Bob supportive, not monetarily, but Bob became one of the most influential people when I needed advice on how to navigate the world of nonprofit leadership, particularly in Orlando and across the country. It was such a privilege to be able to sit down with him and learn at the hand of a master about how to build mutually beneficial relationships. Would not have had that opportunity if I didn't already have others as champions in my corner saying, yes, you should sit down and talk to him, or to have a reputation enough to where Bob would seek me out inside of Disney to build a relationship. That mentoring relationship went on all the way up into his untimely death just a few years ago. We miss him greatly, but I continue to carry forward and make sure that my character and reputation is still of a standard that allows people to be able to positively impact and open doors for me to help me gain and use their platforms and their privilege. I think Kathy Engelbert really shows in her statement that there are rooms that you're not going to sit in, but let's make sure that the messaging in there is positive. Because really, I truly see that sponsors use their influence and their networks to advocate for others. You see it all the time in terms of corporation leadership, but you also see it in personal relationships. There are some people that run around that are very special to me out of Evans High School. They're called the Chickadees. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening, these were the mentees that I had the pleasure of working with many years ago over at Maynard Evans High School in Orlando, Florida. They're now pursuing doctorate degrees, serving in the military. They are pursuing masters in different disciplines at UCF after graduating from Morehouse University. Just so proud of these young people. And what really makes me proud is when I look at or get feedback, or I'm now in the room behind the scenes that they don't know about, having the off the record conversations, and their characters are coming into that conversation pristine. The way they conduct business is coming in there saying that this is somebody we want to validate because they seem okay, but they dropped your name. And I'm able to pay it forward like Bob Billingsley did to say, yeah, that person's good. You should trust and work with that person. I validate that. I co-sign. The key thing is there's a young man out there, love him dearly, Julian Serrano O'Neill, shouting you out, boss, because I'm constantly watching and seeing you grow in your efforts to reach people and make an impact on the community that you serve in Orlando as a senior leader at the United Foundation of Central Florida. Just again, watching you work proves that when I'm asked to sponsor you in rooms that you don't even know about, you're bringing the character and the content that I don't have a problem stepping up to. What I really want to talk about and summarize here is the golden nugget, is talking to why must sponsorship be intentional and not performative? The key thing is it's not performative, because what we're talking about is I am intentionally looking for opportunities to promote others and talk about them and share their stories. And I have an intent with that. My intent is, how can I help them move to the next level? How can I help somebody by paying it forward? And when I say pay it forward, that's really what I'm talking about. It's the relationship and the sponsorship. When you look at it, oftentimes it's somebody saying something, doing something, and in cases, writing a check to help somebody attain a goal. You got to be of good character, though, or it won't work. Because I don't know of many people that will write you a check of a substantial amount or lend their relationship currency to you if you're not worthy of the recognition or the gift. I have a good friend who has been a staunch supporter of my leadership training efforts, of my candidacy when I ran for office, and just been supportive like crazy of other things that we've been able to do in the community together. But, my question is why. When I asked them, why are you intentionally helping me? She says, because you're a good person. She says, because I feel like I'm supposed to help you. Folks, not trying to toot my own horn, but isn't that a great thing to say, have people looking out for ways to help you advance life, career, corporate pursuits? So honestly, it has to be intentional, because if it's just performative, I'm just going through the actions. I don't know anything about that company. I don't know anything about them. I can't defend them when it was really time for me to defend them, to be able to give of my time, talent, and treasure. There's another gentleman out there. I'll shout him out, Jacob Stewart, just to say thank you. Jacob taught me so much about nonprofit, just sitting in the wings and watching as a member of Leadership Orlando, but watching him navigate and navigate running the Orlando Chamber and launching the Central Florida Partnership, in which he changed the way that they embraced how they would fund by creating a model of multiple year funding and then being able to have the good character and reputation to build the relationships around it and support it. Jacob, you're a master. Give you all the credit in the world for what you've done. Thank you for opening a door, even for me, to be able to lead at the Urban League. It was so powerful to have leaders from the community when I was looking to be a part of the Central Florida Urban League as the CEO, to be able to write letters of reference and recommendation that were favorable and gave insight as to what I would bring to the table. Folks, that's a powerful relationship. That is a serious withdrawal. But let me tell you, I had to make deposits first. I had to be there, show up, show myself worthy by being a part of Leadership Orlando. I even went on to chair the Leadership Orlando Alumni Association when it existed, and gave back with other partners to make sure that we created a platform for future leaders to be birthed into the Orlando or Central Florida region. And it continues today. Shout out to all the LO or Leadership Orlando alumni and your current people going through the course. Pay attention, be attentive. You're meeting powerful leaders and you're building your own mutually beneficial relationships. The other part of that, though, is what if you're on the side of being the mentor? How do you identify someone who is worth sponsoring? Well, I hope through the content of this podcast, this session, this episode, I've shared, it's about the character that aligns with your character. It's about the beliefs that align with your belief system. I truly believe it's about assuming good intent and then delivering upon it. I really strongly believe that when you're looking to identify that someone that's worth supporting and sponsoring by lending your voice or your actions or your engagement, they're looking for people who represent the values they believe in, and value is everything. When we talk about value-based relationships, it's like, do they believe in the same things? Are they of good character? Do they have a sound reputation in the community that says, yes, I want to align my brand? Now, that could be individual or corporate entity, particularly nonprofits. Are they known for having a 990 that doesn't have any challenges? Are they known for putting the money in the right places in alignment with what they say their mission is? In working with my brothers to create the Getting in Good Trouble Awards and Stanley T. Muller Scholarship Luncheon, we brought together our scholarship luncheon together with the fundraising arm of Getting in Good Trouble so that we could be able to demonstrate to our sponsors that the funds we truly are raising are being given back. Imagine when a sponsor can sit there and see the organization that they've written a check to actually turning over and writing that check to a young person with a scholarship and a computer like we did last June here in Orlando. It is powerful. I don't think I could have said it any better than one of our sponsors came up and said, this time you got it all together. This was phenomenal. We were able to showcase 10 deserving students that received scholarships in the amount of $2,000 and a laptop to be able to start their way in school and start off on a positive note. But guess what? The key thing is we planted a seed that we plan to water throughout the years and grow into being a tremendous part of the community that we serve. I want to thank all those sponsors that supported that and solicit them to come on and support Off the Record if you want to. Love to have sponsorships looking to bring that and bring the brand to help others promote good movement, leadership development, real conversations in our community. So if you're interested, please don't hesitate to reach out to otrwithali@gmail.com. Drop me a note, say that you're interested. Drop me some feedback as well. Like, comment, and subscribe on all the platforms where you listen to podcasts. Again, really wanting to walk through this and pause for just a moment of reflection and see where people really are. You know, who are you actively sponsoring in your world? Who's that mentee? Who's that coworker? Who's that leader that you're championing their cause when they're not in the room? Most importantly, who's advocating for you to be able to reach that next level, that opportunity to grow? Who are you spending quality time with? Who are you reaching out to and spending 30 minutes a month just to have a session or a coaching session? Are you investing in yourself and developing good character, good reputation, and the tools in the tool bag that'll propel you to the next level? You know, there's a reflections journal that goes along with this series. Please feel free to hit me up on Facebook at Off the Record, the Real Talk Podcast Facebook page. Go in there and type in SHIPs plus your email, and we'll send you the relationship journal so that you can capture the points and see the points that I'm making through this 5-episode series. But just want to say that, you know, most importantly, as we summarize on sponsorship, when it becomes intentional, it happens so naturally. When you find the right people that you want to invest the time, talent, and treasure in, is not a chore. You know, I can just remember the swagger of a Bob or the confidence of a Jacob when he's making a pitch to create an entire medical school at University of Central Florida, or leading the charge to help bridge the gap between healthcare systems in Puerto Rico and here in Central Florida. The confidence they exuded was because of the character and reputation that they both had. And then to be able to be a recipient of an investment of some of their relationship currency in my life to allow me to achieve the great things I did. I just want to thank those two men and their families, because while we have lost Bob, Jacob's still here. And just know that I'm so appreciative of the time, talent, and treasure that you invested in me. As I close out sponsorship, folks, I just want you to remember that sometimes there's a conversation that happens behind a closed door that you're not a part of. And let's make sure that it's the most positive, the most energetic, the most forward projecting it can be in your favor to help move you to the next level. I want to give a special shout out to my good friend who joined me last week on episode 3. If you missed it, go back and check out Chetty Matthews. But thank you, my friend, for joining me and not considering it a chore to jump on a call at 10:30 night your time in Saudi Arabia to join me here on the Off the Record, the Real Talk podcast. I thought it was a phenomenal session, folks. Please go back and look at the entire series if you're on YouTube, or listen to it on your podcast as you do different things. I think you'll find it enjoyable, and you'll really hear how the SHIPs framework really comes together to build powerful relationships. Next week, join me as we move into the final part of it, where we'll talk about ownership. How do you manage, nurture, take care of, and grow these incredible relationships that will be not only something that you'll be able to favorably talk about in your lifetime, but you'll also have the opportunity to grow for a lifetime. Folks, if it's 6 o'clock on a Wednesday, it's always time for Off the Record, the Real Talk podcast with Ali Braswell. Thanks for joining me again. Take care, and we'll see you next week.